Hi, friends. Today we are going to continue talking about layer masks and now how to get more believable overlapping and interaction between objects so that you can create more realistic illusions. The images that I'm going to use for today are of Mr. Incredible because he's kind of the poster child for helping to understand layer masks. And I'm also going to use an Easter egg, but you can put anything inside the egg that you want. I think the egg is a good test of kind of skill and understanding of this concept. You don't have to use Mr. Incredible, but I will. So we want to start first by bringing the two images together. I mean, you could do your mask separately and then pull the image over. But just know that when you do that, it's going to ask you later if you want to save this, since adding a layer mask makes it a Photoshop document that hasn't been saved. So I like to just start by bringing my two images together and working with them in there. I don't know what this is about the colors. I'm just going to click OK. And then I can close my old image without needing to save it because I didn't actually do anything to it. So I need to make sure I can see my layers. Here they are. And on my Mr. Incredible layer, I'm going to start by selecting him and making a mask. There's a couple ways to do this, but I'll show you. Maybe I'll show you both. All right. So I've used my object selection tool. It does a pretty good job. And one thing that you can do now that we have learned about basic masking, I'll show you quick masking or quick mask mode. At the bottom of your tools panel, there's a little button, looks like a rectangle with a dotted circle in it. It's below your foreground and background colors. Once I've made a selection, if I go into quick mask mode, you'll see everything outside of my selection turns red. Now, it is a little tough because his outfit is also red, but basically whatever it turns red outside of your selection is what's going to be hidden by a layer mask when you go ahead and make one. And just like with a regular mask, I can use the paintbrush with black and white to show or hide, more or less of that image. So I had white. It was when I painted with white in quick mask mode, it showed more of the background. I'm going to turn my hardness up, switch to black, and I'm just going to get rid of this little piece of the background that's showing through here by his hair. The rest of that looks good enough for me. But again, if you needed to edit anything in quick mask mode, you can paint with black and it'll hide whatever turns into that red color, or you can paint with white and it'll show more of the background. So again, it works just like layer masks, except we're in quick mask mode. We haven't made our mask yet, but we're using the paintbrush with black and white to show or hide more of that image. All right. So if that all looks good to me, I'm going to have to make sure I get back out of quick mask mode, and that's going to turn any changes I made back into my selection. And from there, I can make a mask. Okay. So I clicked the layer mask icon. Now I can see there's a mask attached to my Mr. Incredible layer. However, I've got to make him look like he's inside this egg, and A, the size is off, B, I can't really see where my egg is, and C, he's just completely overlapping the egg, which ruins the illusion. So I'm going to start by turning my opacity down in my layers panel. That way I can kind of see through the egg and get an idea of, where I'm going to put him so that he looks like he's popping out of the egg. I want to line up so some of his head is underneath the top part of the egg. I'm looking at this outer part of the shell. But then here, his neck and chin are too wide. So I'm going to have to do a Control T, resize him a little bit until his neck will fit inside of that egg, so some of that edge are going to overlap or go past, his neck and chin on either side. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to hit Enter. And I'm going to leave the opacity down for now. I'm going to just start by doing this by hand to show you, one way of working. I'm actually going to make a copy too so I can show you both ways. Oops. So in the first way, I'm just going to click on the black and white layer mask, and I'm just going to paint by hand. So this might work for those of you that maybe aren't as comfortable with selections or just can visualize it a little bit better this way. The other way is going to take quite a few steps and might be a little more confusing. What I'm trying to do here is just paint perfectly along the edge of that eggshell in order to, when I turn the opacity back up, make it look like he is filling in the space right where that eggshell ends. So again, the beauty of layer masks, if I go too far, like I erased too much of the, or not erased, but I hid too much of the his face right now, I can just bring that back in by switching from black to white. So I'm going to start with that and just see how that looks. So the idea here is that I painted black on my layer mask only where his face was overlapping the outer edge of that shell on the bottom. Before I do the top part, I'll show you what that looks like. If I turn my opacity back up, see how now it kind of looks like he's popping out of the shell? That's what we're trying to do here, is create the illusion, even though we know he's not inside of the egg, he's actually over top of that layer. With layer masks, we can create the illusion that things are interacting in different ways. So I can go ahead and do the same thing up top, use paint by hand with paintbrush with black on my brush on the layer mask. Sorry for the bell. And that will finish off the top part. Okay, I didn't do a super careful job of that, but now you can see it looks like he's popping out of the egg. The second way that I want to show you to do this actually takes a different route, a slightly different route. So I'm actually going to hide him completely. I'm going to select on my egg. And again, there's a couple tools you can use, but what I want to do is use a tool that's going to help me select that outer part of the eggshell. So for me, I'm using the magnetic lasso tool. And again, if it has a hard time finding where those edges are, you can always just click like that. So now I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to add the bottom part because I want to do this fast. And again, I'm just going along the bottom edge of that egg and then going back around to where I started so that I can finish those shapes out. So now I have my selection around the egg, but again, just the front part of the egg, not the back part. I'm going to go to my second version of him, click on my layer mask. At this point, I can either get my brush, paint with black like that, and then I don't have to worry about where I paint. Now I'll deal with this part later. Or I can go to edit, fill, and fill with black. And it'll fill those areas in too. Now, I forgot by going just around the egg, I was not going to hide his shoulders here. So I can do Control D to deselect and then come in and paint with black on my layer mask to hide those pieces. So either of those are valid ways of working. You can see we get about the same results. They're just different ways of approaching it. Just like everything, there's a million ways to do pretty much anything in Photoshop. So this is how I did Mr. Incredible. You would do it the same way, whatever you want to put inside the egg. Just make sure that you hide where the front of the egg overlaps and that it fits within the edges of the egg. So save your PSD, your screenshot, your JPEG, and you are all set.